She was still bleeding, her body trembling violently from the agonizing exhaustion of a 20-hour labor, clutching her newborn daughter tightly against her chest. But instead of a tender kiss or tears of joy, the hospital room door swung open to reveal her husband and his sneering mother. They didn't come to welcome the baby. They came to serve her divorce papers. They called her a worthless nobody, holding him back. But what they didn't know was that they had just declared war on the sole heiress to a $60 billion empire. The sterile, blinding fluorescent lights of room 412 at Massachusetts General Hospital buzzed with a low, maddening hum. Chloe Harrington, known to the world for the last 4 years simply as Chloe Adams, a struggling freelance graphic designer, lay in the center of the stark white bed. Her raven hair was matted with sweat, her face pale and drawn. In her arms, wrapped in a faded pink hospital blanket, was Maya, her daughter, the tiny, fragile culmination of 9 months of anticipation, kicks, and whispered promises. Chloe's body ached in ways she hadn't known were physically possible. Every muscle felt as though it had been put through a meat grinder, but the sheer, overwhelming rush of maternal love, acting as a temporary narcotic, kept the pain at bay. She looked down at Maya's perfect, tiny fingers, waiting for the door to open, waiting for Liam. Liam Campbell, her husband of 3 years. The man she had met in a crowded Cambridge coffee shop, the brilliant but broke MIT dropout with dreams of revolutionizing artificial intelligence. She had spent the last 3 years living in a cramped, drafty apartment in Somerville, eating instant ramen and wearing thrift store clothes just to support his vision. She had hidden her true identity, terrified of the gold diggers and sycophants that usually swarmed her family's name, just to experience genuine, unconditional love. The heavy wooden door finally clicked open. Chloe's exhausted face broke into a radiant, fragile smile. "Liam, she's here. She has your nose," the words died in her throat. Liam didn't rush to her bedside. He didn't drop to his knees in tears at the sight of his firstborn child. Instead, he stood rigidly in the doorway, wearing a sharply tailored navy brioni suit that Chloe knew they couldn't afford. His jaw was tight, his eyes darting anywhere but at her or the baby. Stepping out from behind him, like a shadow stretching across the room, was Bella Campbell. Bella, her mother-in-law, was a woman whose entire existence was defined by a desperate, clawing need for upper-class validation. Wore a pristine white Chanel boucle suit, her neck dripping with faux pearls, her face pulled tight into a mask of perpetual disdain. Bella had never liked Chloe. To Bella, Chloe was a peasant, a lowly artist with no pedigree, no connections, and no money. "Liam," Chloe whispered, her voice cracking, a sudden chill sweeping through the warm room. "What's going on? Why is she here?" Bella didn't even look at the newborn. She marched to the foot of the hospital bed, her heels clicking aggressively against the linoleum floor. From her designer tote bag, she retrieved a thick manila folder and slammed it down onto the rolling tray table, pushing it violently toward Chloe. "We don't have time for this sentimental nonsense, Chloe," Bella snapped, her voice like cracking ice. "Sign them. We have a dinner reservation at the Four Seasons in an hour, and Liam needs this finalized before the champagne is poured." Chloe blinked, her exhausted brain struggling to process the scene. She looked down at the folder. The bold black letters on the front page screamed up at her. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." The air in the room vanished, Chloe's lungs seized. She looked from the papers to Liam, her eyes wide with a horrific realization. "Liam, what is this?" she choked out, her arms instinctively tightening around Maya. "I just gave birth. Literally 2 hours ago. What are you doing?" Liam finally looked at her. His eyes, the same hazel eyes she had fallen in love with, were completely devoid of warmth. "It's over, Chloe. I'm sorry. But my startup, Apex Dynamics, it's on the verge of a massive Series B funding round. We are talking $50 million. But to get it, I need to align myself with the right people. People with actual influence. People who can elevate me." "He means Vanessa Roth," Bella interjected, a smug, triumphant smile playing on her thin lips. "Vanessa's father sits on the board of 3 major venture capital firms. She has the connections Liam needs. She is a woman of substance, not a barista with a sketchbook." Chloe felt a physical blow to her chest, sharper than the contractions had been. Vanessa Roth, the wealthy, obnoxious socialite who had been hovering around Liam's tech mixers for the past 6 months. The woman who wore her father's wealth like a weapon. "You're leaving me, and your newborn daughter. For funding?" Chloe whispered, the sheer absurdity of the betrayal rendering her breathless. "Liam, we built this together. I supported you when you had nothing." "You supported me with what, Chloe? Minimum wage?" Liam scoffed, stepping forward, his tone shifting from distant to cruelly defensive. "Vanessa is bringing $10 million of her own family's money to the table tomorrow morning. But her father is old-fashioned. He won't let her invest in a married man. I need to be unencumbered. I need a clean slate." "A clean slate," Chloe repeated, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly quiet register. "Your daughter is a stain you need to wipe clean?" "Don't be dramatic," Bella sneered, waving a manicured hand dismissively. "Liam will pay you a modest child support, $500 a month. That should cover whatever cheap formula you buy. Now sign the papers, take your bastard child, and go back to whatever trailer park you crawled out of." Chloe stared at the two of them. For 3 years, she had played the role of the submissive, supportive, poor wife perfectly. She had absorbed Bella's relentless insults, Liam's growing arrogance, all in the name of love. She had thought, beneath his ambition, Liam was a good man. She had been profoundly, catastrophically wrong. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the hospital room. Only the rhythmic beep, beep, beep of the heart. Monitor broke the tension. Chloe looked down at the divorce papers. Then she looked down at Maya. The baby was sleeping peacefully, completely oblivious to the fact that her father had just sold her out for a socialite's checkbook. Something inside Chloe snapped. It wasn't a loud, chaotic break. It was a cold, calculated locking of a vault. The naive, hopelessly romantic girl who wanted to live a normal, humble life died on that hospital bed. And in her place, the true Chloe Harrington, granddaughter of the ruthless Arthur Harrington, heir to a real estate and logistics monopoly that spanned 3 continents, woke up. To understand the sheer astronomical magnitude of Liam's mistake, one had to understand the Harrington empire. Chloe wasn't just wealthy. She was dynastic wealthy. Her family owned half the commercial skyline in Boston, a fleet of international shipping vessels, and a controlling stake in the largest telecom network in North America. Growing up behind the wrought iron gates of the Harrington estate in Brookline, Chloe had been groomed for corporate warfare since she could walk. But wealth of that magnitude was a prison. It attracted parasites. By the time Chloe was 20, she had been used, manipulated, and betrayed by countless friends and suitors who only saw dollar signs when they looked at her. So she rebelled. She changed her last name to Adams, moved into a dilapidated apartment, and swore she would find someone who loved her for her soul, not her portfolio. When she met Liam, he was brilliant, passionate, and penniless. She thought she had found her diamond and in the rough. What Liam didn't know, what no one knew, was that his genius startup, Apex Dynamics, would have gone bankrupt 2 years ago if not for a mysterious angel investor firm called Blue Horizon Ventures. Blue Horizon Ventures was a shell company. Chloe owned it. Every late night, Liam spent bragging about how he had single-handedly secured $3 million in seed capital. Chloe had smiled, rubbed his shoulders, and played the proud, simple wife. She had secretly liquidated a portion of her own trust fund to finance his dreams, funneling the money through her lawyers, so Liam's fragile male ego wouldn't be bruised. She had built the very throne he was currently sitting on to look down at her. Back in the hospital room, the silence stretched. "Well?" Bella barked, tapping a diamond-encrusted pen against the tray table. "We don't have all day, Chloe. Sign the document. If you fight this in court, I promise you, with Vanessa's lawyers, we will drag you through the mud. We will prove you are an unfit, impoverished mother, and take the child away entirely, just to spite you." Chloe slowly raised her head. The tears that had been welling in her eyes were gone, evaporated by a sudden, intense heat. She looked at Bella, really looked at her, and for the first time, Bella felt a sudden, inexplicable shiver run down her spine. The poor, mousy girl on the bed suddenly had the eyes of an apex predator. "You want me to sign?" Chloe asked, her voice eerily calm, devoid of the hysteria they had expected. "Yes, immediately," Liam said, though he shifted uncomfortably on his feet. "Chloe, it's just business. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Chloe didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't scream. With one arm securely holding Maya, she reached out with her right hand and took the pen from Bella. She flipped to the last page of the dissolution petition. "I hope, Liam," Chloe said softly, the scratch of the pen echoing loudly in the sterile room as she signed Chloe Adams on the dotted line, "that Vanessa Roth is worth it. I really, truly do." She tossed the pen onto the table. Bella snatched the folder up immediately, a look of greedy triumph washing over her face. "Smart girl, you finally learned your place." She turned to Liam. "Come along, darling. Vanessa is waiting. We have a future to build." Liam hesitated for a fraction of a second. He glanced at the tiny bundle in Chloe's arms. For a moment, a flicker of guilt crossed his features, but then the vision of tens of millions of dollars and a life of luxury washed it away. "Goodbye, Chloe," Liam said, turning his back on his family. They walked out, shutting the door behind them. Chloe sat in the bed for a long time. The smell of Bella's overwhelming perfume lingered in the air like a toxin. Chloe looked down at Maya, who opened her eyes, striking, bright blue eyes that belonged entirely to the Harrington bloodline. "It's just you and me now, little one," Chloe whispered, kissing the baby's forehead. "And I promise you, they will pay for every single tear we shed today." She reached over to the bedside table, picking up her cheap, cracked smartphone. She bypassed her usual contacts and opened a secure, encrypted messaging app she hadn't used in 3 years. She typed in a number she knew by heart. The phone rang exactly once before it was answered. Kensington Law, a deep, gravelly voice answered. It was David Kensington, the Harrington family's most feared corporate attorney and personal fixer. David, Chloe said, her voice dropping an octave, radiating authority. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Ms. Harrington, it has been 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days. The chairman has been beside himself. Are you safe? I'm at Mass General, room 412, Chloe said coldly. I need a discreet extraction. Bring the Maybach. Bring a medical team. And David? Yes, Ms. Harrington. Prepare the war room at the estate. I'm coming home. 2 hours later, the side entrance of Massachusetts General Hospital was cordoned off by 4 towering men in dark suits. Doctors and nurses whispered in hushed, nervous tones as a state-of-the-art private medical transport stretcher was guided toward the exit. Chloe didn't leave the hospital in the back of a cheap taxi, weeping over her broken marriage. She left surrounded by a phalanx of private security, dressed in a plush cashmere robe David had brought, holding Maya securely against her chest. Waiting at the curb was a sleek, armored Mercedes Maybach Pullman, flanked by 2 black Escalades. David Kensington, a tall, imposing man in his late 50s with silver hair and a bespoke charcoal suit, stood by the open door of the Maybach. He bowed slightly as Chloe approached. It is profoundly good to see you, Miss Harrington, David said, his sharp eyes lingering on the baby. And who is this new heir to the dynasty? This is Maya, Chloe said, stepping into the cavernous, leather-scented interior of the vehicle. And she is going to inherit the world, David. The doors shut with a heavy, soundproof thud, cutting off the noise of the Boston streets. As the convoy pulled away, gliding smoothly toward the ultra-exclusive enclaves of Brookline, David handed Chloe an encrypted tablet. Your grandfather has been notified. He is emotional, to say the least, David noted, pouring her a glass of sparkling water. He has already cleared his schedule for the next month. Now what are your orders, ma'am? Why the sudden return? Chloe's jaw tightened. Liam Campbell served me with divorce papers an hour after I gave birth. David's expression remained stoic, but the temperature in the car seemed to drop by 10 degrees. I see. Shall I have his legs broken, or would you prefer a more systemic destruction? Physical pain is temporary, David, Chloe said, staring out the tinted windows at the passing city skyline, half of which her family literally owned. Liam left me because he thinks a woman named Vanessa Roth is going to fund his Series B for Apex Dynamics. He thinks he's trading up to the big leagues. David pulled out his phone, his thumbs flying across the screen. Vanessa Roth, daughter of Richard Roth. The Roths are old money, but they've been hemorrhaging cash for a decade. Her father is leveraged to the hilt in bad commercial real estate. Vanessa is a socialite playing with credit cards. She doesn't have $10 million to invest. A dark, dangerous smile touched Chloe's lips. She's bluffing him. She wants his tech valuation to secure loans to save her own family's bankrupt estate. Exactly, David confirmed, reading the rapid intel report his team was already compiling. A parasite attaching itself to another parasite. Let them have each other, Chloe said softly, looking down at the tablet. She opened the dossier on Blue Horizon Ventures. But before they realize they're both drowning, I want to pull the plug on Liam's life support. She tapped the screen, dialing the private number of Richard Cole, the proxy CEO of Blue Horizon Ventures. He answered immediately. "Ms. Harrington, an honor, ma'am." "Richard," Chloe said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "3 years ago, I authorized a $3 million seed investment into Apex Dynamics." "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Campbell's AI firm. They are projecting a massive jump in valuation next week. They've been begging us to lead the Series B. Invoke the morality clause in the original founding contract," Chloe commanded. "Section 4, paragraph B. Any conduct by the CEO that brings reputational damage or reflects poor ethical judgment allows the primary investor to immediately recall the initial capital and seize all intellectual property tied to the seed funds." Richard Cole hesitated. "Ma'am, pulling out now will trigger a cascading panic among his secondary investors. His credit lines will freeze. The company will be insolvent by Monday morning. It's a total kill shot." "I'm aware, Richard," Chloe said, her eyes flashing with a terrifying resolve. "Execute the order. I want his company liquidated. I want his servers locked. By the time Liam finishes his appetizer tonight, I want him to know he is completely, utterly ruined. Consider it done, Ms. Harrington." Chloe ended the call and leaned back against the plush leather seat. She looked down at Maya, who was sleeping soundly, completely unaware that her mother had just orchestrated the corporate execution of her father. Meanwhile, across the city, at the opulent dining room of the Boston Harbor Hotel, Liam Campbell sat at a candle-lit table, raising a crystal glass of Dom Perignon. Across from him sat Vanessa Roth, a stunning blonde dripping in Cartier jewelry, flashing a brilliant, predatory smile. To Liam's right sat his mother, Bella, practically vibrating with glee as she surveyed the wealthy patrons around them. "To new beginnings," Vanessa purred, clinking her glass against Liam's. "And to the future unicorn of the tech world, Apex Dynamics." "To us," Liam smiled, taking a long sip of the champagne. The nagging guilt of leaving Chloe bleeding in a hospital bed had already vanished, replaced by the intoxicating high of impending wealth. He had done it. He had cut the dead weight. He was finally going to be a titan of industry. He reached into his pocket as his phone buzzed. A notification. Liam casually glanced at the screen, expecting an email from his lead developer or a congratulatory text from a board member. Instead, the screen read, "Urgent, Blue Horizon Ventures, notice of immediate capital recall and IP seizure." Liam's smile froze. His blood ran cold. "Liam, darling?" Bella asked, noticing the sudden, ghost-like pallor of her son's face. "Is everything all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Liam didn't answer. His hands began to tremble violently as he opened the email. The legal jargon blurred together, but the core message was terrifyingly clear. Morality clause invoked. IP seized. Funds recalled. Accounts frozen. Blue Horizon wasn't just pulling out of the Series B. They were taking back everything. "Liam?" Vanessa asked, her voice losing its sugary sweetness, an edge of genuine panic creeping in. She needed his valuation to secure her father's bridge loan. If his company went under, she went under. "What is it?" Liam dropped the phone. It clattered against the fine china plate. The $60 billion emir he had blindly offended had just fired its first missile, and Liam Campbell had no idea that the architect of his destruction was the very woman he had thrown away like trash just hours before. But as he sat there, hyperventilating in the middle of the luxury restaurant, he was about to learn a very hard lesson. You don't hand a dragon divorce papers and expect not to get burned. The crystal chandelier, above Liam's table at the Boston Harbor Hotel, seemed to dim as the blood drained entirely from his face. The words on the screen of his phone were a death sentence. Immediate capital recall. IP seizure. Accounts frozen. Liam! Vanessa Roth's voice had lost its sultry, practiced purr. It was now sharp, edged with the frantic anxiety of a woman whose own financial survival was tethered to the man sitting across from her. She reached out, her French manicured fingers snatching the phone from the fine china plate. Her eyes darted back and forth across the screen. With every second, her flawless, heavily contoured face contorted further into a mask of pure horror. A morality clause? Vanessa hissed, her voice rising above the polite murmur of the restaurant. Several heads at adjacent tables turned their way. Blue Horizon is pulling out? They're taking the intellectual property? Liam, what did you do? I don't know, Liam stammered, his hands shaking so violently he had to grip the edge of the mahogany table to steady himself. It has to be a mistake, a clerical error. I'm the founder. They can't just take my company. Read the email, you idiot, Vanessa shrieked, slamming the phone back down. They aren't just pulling the Series B funding. They are seizing the seed assets, your code, your patents, your servers. It's all gone. You are absolutely, utterly bankrupt. Bella, who had been blissfully oblivious, finally grasped the severity of the situation. She dropped her oyster fork, her faux pearls clattering against the table. Vanessa, darling, please lower your voice. It's just a misunderstanding. Liam is a genius. His company is worth $50 million. His company is worth $0, Vanessa snapped, turning her venomous glare onto Bella. The poised, elegant socialite act evaporated, revealing the desperate, cornered animal underneath. My father's bridge loan was contingent on Liam's valuation. I spent 6 months courting this pathetic, married loser because he was supposed to be my family's golden ticket. Do you know how much debt my father is in? If Liam's equity is gone, the banks are going to foreclose on our properties by Monday. Liam stared at her, the final pieces of his catastrophic miscalculation falling into place. You don't have $10 million to invest? Vanessa let out a harsh, hysterical laugh. Invest? Liam, my credit cards are maxed out for the designer clothes I wear to your cheap tech mixers. I needed you to be rich so I could save myself. You were a mark, and now you're just a broke, divorced deadbeat. She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair backward. She grabbed her Heiress Birkin bag, a fake. Liam suddenly realized with sickening clarity and glared down at him with absolute disgust. Have fun at the bottom, Liam. Don't ever contact me again. Vanessa spun on her heel and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Liam and his mother sitting in stunned, humiliated silence. The waiter, sensing the collapse of the table's facade, approached with a leather folder. Your bill, sir. $840. Liam numbly reached for his wallet and handed over his sleek black corporate card. The waiter swiped it at the table terminal. It beeped angrily. Declined, sir. Liam felt a cold sweat break out across his forehead. He handed the waiter his personal credit card. Declined. His debit card. Declined. Blue Horizon hadn't just frozen the company accounts. The resulting cascade had triggered algorithmic freezes on his personal lines of credit, all of which were leveraged against his now worthless stock options. Bella, humiliated and trembling, had to empty her purse, paying the astronomical bill with the last of her own dwindling savings, leaving no tip. As they stumbled out of the hotel into the warm Boston night, Liam pulled out his phone and frantically dialed Richard Cole, the proxy CEO of Blue Horizon Ventures. After 4 agonizing rings, the line clicked open. "Richard! Richard! What the hell is going on?" Liam screamed into the receiver. "You can't do this. I am Apex Dynamics. You can't invoke a morality clause over a divorce." "Actually, Mr. Campbell, we can," Cole's voice replied, chillingly calm and entirely devoid of the paternal warmth he had shown Liam for the past 2 years. Section 4, Paragraph B of your founding agreement explicitly states that any action bringing reputational harm or demonstrating catastrophic ethical failure allows us to liquidate. Abandoning your wife and newborn child in a hospital bed to chase a bankrupt socialite qualifies as a catastrophic ethical failure. Liam froze. The blood roaring in his ears suddenly went quiet. How do you know about that?" "That happened 2 hours ago. It was private." "Blue Horizon knows everything, Liam," Cole said coldly. "We owned you, and now we own your code. Security is currently clearing out your headquarters. If you step foot on the premises, you will be arrested for trespassing. Have a good evening." The line went dead. Panic, raw and blinding, seized Liam's chest. He practically shoved his mother into a passing taxi, yelling the address to the Apex Dynamics headquarters in Cambridge. When they arrived, Liam's worst nightmare was unfolding in real time. The sleek, glass-fronted office building was surrounded by heavily armed private security contractors. Movers were already hauling out servers, hard drives and filing cabinets, loading them into unmarked black vans. Liam ran toward the entrance, but 2 massive men in tactical suits stepped in his way, shoving him back so hard he stumbled onto the pavement. "Access denied, Mr. Campbell," one of the guards rumbled, his hand resting casually on his radio. From the glass doors emerged Harrison, Liam's lead developer and co-founder. Harrison looked at Liam with a mixture of profound betrayal and simmering rage. He was carrying a small cardboard box of personal belongings. "Harrison, tell them to stop," Liam begged, crawling to his feet. "We can fix this. We can write new call." "Fix this," Harrison spat, stepping closer to Liam. "Blue Horizon took the patents, Liam. They took the source code. They took my equity. We are ruined because you couldn't keep your ego in check. You sold us out to play Billionaire with a woman who played you for a fool. You're nothing, Liam. You never were." Harrison walked away into the night, leaving Liam standing on the sidewalk, watching the physical manifestation of his dreams being loaded into the back of a truck and driven away. Despair washed over him, thick and suffocating. He had nothing. No company, no money, no socialite. And then, a pathetic, desperate thought bloomed in his mind. Chloe. Chloe was a simple girl. She was forgiving. She had that little savings account she used for household emergencies. If he could just talk to her, explain that he had made a terrible mistake, manipulate her into taking him back, he would at least have a place to sleep tonight. He could use her credit score to take out a personal loan. "Mom, get back in the cab," Liam ordered, his eyes wild. "We have to go back to the hospital. I have to get Chloe back." They sped back to Massachusetts General Hospital, running through the lobby and ignoring the receptionist's protests as they took the elevator to the maternity ward. Liam burst through the doors and sprinted down the hall to room 412. He threw the door open. The room was empty. The bed was made. The sterile scent of bleach hung in the air. Liam grabbed a passing nurse by the arm. "Where is she? Chloe Adams. She was just here." The nurse yanked her arm away, glaring at him. "Ms. Adams was discharged over an hour ago." "Discharged? She just had a baby. Who took her? Did she call a cab?" The nurse looked at him with a mixture of confusion and contempt. "She didn't take a cab, sir. A private medical extraction team arrived. 4 men in suits escorted her to a Maybach. That's all I know." Liam stumbled backward, hitting the door frame. "A Maybach? Private security?" The words made no sense. Chloe was a freelance graphic designer who bought her shoes on clearance. As he stood in the empty hospital room, the cold, terrifying realization finally began to set in. He hadn't just lost his company. He had stepped onto a battlefield he couldn't comprehend, fighting a ghost he didn't know existed. The wrought-iron gates of the Harrington estate loomed like a fortress against the night sky. As the Maybach glided up the winding, tree-lined driveway, the sprawling limestone mansion came into view, its grand windows glowing with warm, golden light against the darkness of the Brookline enclave. Chloe stepped out of the vehicle, the plush cashmere robe wrapping her and Maya tightly against the evening chill. She paused for a moment, her bare feet touching the pristine cobblestones. For 3 years, she had run from this place, terrified of the weight and the isolation that the Harrington name carried. She wasn't running anymore. She was home. The massive oak double doors swung open before she even reached the steps. Standing in the foyer, flanked by the estate's staff, was Arthur Harrington. At 82 years old, Arthur was a man who still struck fear into the hearts of Wall Street executives. He was tall, his posture unyielding, with a mane of thick white hair and eyes as sharp and unforgiving as shattered glass. But as he looked at his only granddaughter, the ruthless titan of industry vanished. His eyes filled with tears, and his hands trembled as he stepped forward. "Chloe," Arthur whispered, his voice cracking with a vulnerability no one outside this room had ever witnessed. "Hi, Grandpa," Chloe said softly, a genuine smile breaking through her exhaustion. Arthur closed the distance, wrapping his arms around her and the tiny bundle she carried. He held them fiercely, as if terrified she might vanish again. When he finally pulled back, he looked down at the sleeping infant. "She is magnificent," Arthur breathed, gently brushing a finger against Maya's cheek. He looked up at Chloe, and the softness in his eyes hardened into cold, absolute steel. "David briefed me on the situation on the drive over. Liam Campbell will never work in this hemisphere again. I will see to it personally." "He's already dealt with, Grandpa," Chloe said, walking with him into the grand parlor. Blue Horizon seized his assets tonight, but ruining him financially isn't enough. Not after what he did. Not after what he said about my daughter. Arthur poured 2 glasses of scotch, setting one on the table beside the plush velvet sofa where Chloe sat. "You have your mother's heart, Chloe, but you have my blood. What do you want to do?" "I want him to know," Chloe said, her voice dropping to a chillingly calm register. "I don't just want him to be broke. I want him to look me in the eyes and realize exactly what he threw away. And I want to dismantle the people who tried to use him to step on me." The next 48 hours were a blur of transformation. The ghost of Chloe Adams was systematically erased. The thrift store clothes and chipped fingernail polish were discarded. In their place came the armor of the Harrington dynasty, a private team of stylists, tailors, and cosmetologists was brought to the estate. When Chloe finally emerged from the master suite on Sunday morning, She was unrecognizable. Her raven hair was blown out into a sleek, powerful style. She wore a bespoke, razor-sharp emerald green Tom Ford pantsuit that screamed quiet luxury. A minimalist Cartier watch rested on her wrist, a piece worth more than Liam's entire former company. She walked into the estate's war room, a high-tech boardroom hidden beneath the west wing of the mansion. David Kensington and Arthur were waiting for her, a massive digital map of corporate assets glowing on the screen behind them. "Sit down, Madam CEO," Arthur said, a proud smirk on his face as he gestured to the leather chair at the head of the table. Chloe took her seat, her posture immaculate, her eyes sharp. "Report." David Kensington tapped his tablet, bringing up a dossier on the screen. "Liam Campbell has spent the last 2 days spiraling. He has been calling every venture capitalist in New England, begging for a meeting. He's sleeping on his mother's couch. He is desperate." "And the Roths?" Chloe asked. "Hemorrhaging," David replied, bringing up a financial web of red lines. "Richard Roth's real estate portfolio is collapsing. His daughter, Vanessa, failed to secure Liam's equity to back their loans. In a final act of desperation, Richard Roth is hosting the Northeast Innovation Gala tomorrow night at the Museum of Fine Arts. It's disguised as a charity event, but it's actually a veiled attempt to solicit a massive bailout from private equity firms." Chloe steepled her fingers, her mind working with the tactical brilliance she had inherited from her grandfather. "Liam knows about this gala." "He does," David nodded. "And our intelligence suggests he plans to crash it. He thinks if he can corner some of the attendees, he can convince them that Blue Horizon stole his IP and that he just needs a small loan to start over." Chloe smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was a predator's grin. "Perfect. What is the play, Chloe?" Arthur asked, leaning forward, utterly fascinated by the ruthless strategist his granddaughter had become. "David," Chloe said, never taking her eyes off the screen, "I want you to buy the Roth family's debt. All of it. Call the banks holding their mortgages and commercial loans. Offer a 10% premium for immediate transfer of the paper. By tomorrow night, I want Harrington Industries to be the sole creditor of Richard Roth's entire estate." David's eyebrows raised in quiet admiration. "It will cost approximately $400 million to consolidate their debt, ma'am." "Do it," Chloe commanded. "When Vanessa Roth tried to steal my husband, she told him she was a woman of substance. Tomorrow night, I am going to show her exactly what substance looks like. And when Liam shows up to beg for scraps from the elite, he's going to find out who really owns the table." "It shall be done by noon tomorrow," David said, bowing his head slightly. Chloe stood up, smoothing the front of her emerald suit. She looked at her grandfather, who was practically glowing with pride. "I'm going to check on Maya," Chloe said softly, the corporate titan melting away for just a brief second to reveal the fiercely protective mother underneath. "And then, Grandpa, I think it's time Chloe Harrington makes her official return to Boston society." Arthur raised his glass of scotch to her. "Give them hell, my dear." As Chloe walked down the grand hallway toward the nursery, her heart beat with a steady, terrifying calm. Liam had wanted a world of wealth, power, and status. He had destroyed his family to get it. Tomorrow night, she was going to give him exactly what he wanted. She was going to drag him into the very center of that world, lock the doors, and burn it to the ground with him inside. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston was bathed in the warm, ambient glow of hundreds of floating candles. The great room had been transformed into an opulent playground for New England's most powerful elite. Waiters in crisp white tuxedos glided across the marble floors, balancing silver trays of beluga caviar and flutes of vintage Krug champagne. This was the Northeast Innovation Gala, the definitive battleground where Boston's old money met the rising titans of the tech world. For Richard Roth, it was a desperate last stand. Standing near a towering floral arrangement of white orchids, the aging real estate mogul sweated through his bespoke canale tuxedo. Beside him stood his daughter, Vanessa, wearing a crimson Oscar de la Renta gown that she had charged to a credit card already teetering on the edge of default. Her usual haughty demeanor was replaced by a frantic, darting paranoia. They had to secure a private equity bailout tonight, or by Monday, the Roth estate would be seized by the banks. Hovering near the back entrance, hiding behind a marble column, was Liam Campbell. He looked nothing like the arrogant, polished CEO who had strutted into the hospital just 3 days prior. His once immaculate navy Brioni suit was severely wrinkled, smelling faintly of the stale couch cushions in his mother's tiny apartment. His eyes were bloodshot and wild with panic. Beside him, Bella nervously adjusted her faux pearls, her face pale as she surveyed the room of billionaires they were desperately trying to infiltrate. They had bribed a catering manager with Bella's last $500 just to slip through the service doors. "Liam, who are you looking for?" Bella hissed, pulling at his sleeve. "We don't belong here. If security catches us—" "Quiet, Mum," Liam snapped, his eyes scanning the crowd. "I just need 5 minutes with Peter Thiel's scouts or someone from Sequoia Capital. If I can just explain that Blue Horizon orchestrated a hostile takeover, they'll back my new venture. I know the code. I just need capital." Suddenly, the low murmur of the string quartet faded. A heavy, expectant hush fell over the great room. At the center of the grand staircase, Richard Roth tapped a silver spoon against his crystal champagne flute. The crowd turned toward him, polite applause echoing against the museum walls. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard projected, his voice trembling slightly despite his practiced smile. "Thank you for joining us tonight. We are here to celebrate innovation, legacy, and the future of Boston's commerce. Tonight, I have the profound honor of introducing a very special guest. She is the newly appointed CEO of Harrington Industries, and as of this morning, the primary financial backer of the Roth Family Trust." Vanessa let out a massive, visible sigh of relief, leaning against a cocktail table. Her father had done it. He had found a buyer for their debt. They were saved. Liam, too, stepped out from behind the pillar, his heart pounding. The CEO of Harrington Industries. The Harringtons were royalty. If he could just get to her, pitch his AI concept, he could bypass the venture capital firms entirely. "Please," Richard Roth announced, gesturing to the top of the grand staircase. "Join me in welcoming Ms. Chloe Harrington." The heavy mahogany doors at the top of the stairs opened. Liam's breath caught in his throat. He froze, his brain violently rejecting the image his eyes were transmitting. Standing at the top of the staircase was his ex-wife. But it wasn't the Chloe he knew. Gone was the exhausted, plain girl in oversized sweaters. This woman was a terrifying vision of absolute power. She wore a flawless, custom-tailored emerald green Alexander McQueen gown that hugged her curves and pooled elegantly at her feet. Around her neck rested the legendary Harrington Emerald, a multi-million-dollar piece of heirloom jewelry that caught the candlelight and threw shards of green fire across the room. Her posture was razor straight, her gaze sweeping over the crowd with the cold, detached authority of a queen surveying her subjects. Flanking her were David Kensington and 3 heavily armed private security details. "No," Liam whispered, his voice cracking, stumbling backward into a waiter and sending a tray of champagne crashing to the marble floor. "No, that's impossible." Bella let out a strangled gasp, her hands flying to her mouth. She looked like she was about to faint. "Is that Chloe?" The barista. At the base of the stairs, Vanessa Roth's jaw dropped. She recognized the face from the pictures Liam had shown her, the pathetic nobody holding him back. But the woman descending the stairs with the grace of a lethal predator was no nobody. Chloe glided down the steps, the crowd parting for her like the Red Sea. She didn't look at Richard Roth. She didn't look at Vanessa. Her piercing blue eyes found Liam Campbell in the back of the room, shivering in his wrinkled suit. She walked directly toward him. The entire gala went dead silent, watching the young billionaire heiress approach the disgraced tech founder. "Hello, Liam," Chloe said, her voice echoing clearly in the quiet hall. It was perfectly smooth, devoid of any anger, which made it infinitely more terrifying. "Chloe," Liam choked out, his mind completely shattered. He looked at the emerald around her neck, the bespoke gown, the sheer, crushing aura of wealth radiating from her. What are you doing here? Harrington? You're a Harrington." "I am," Chloe replied softly, stopping 3 feet away from him. "And 3 days ago, I was your wife. I supported you. I loved you. I liquidated $3 million of my own trust fund to anonymously finance Apex Dynamics under the shell company, Blue Horizon Ventures." A collective gasp rippled through the elite crowd. The realization hit Liam with the force of a freight train. His knees buckled. You were Blue Horizon," Liam whispered, tears of absolute devastation spilling down his cheeks. "You funded me." "I built you, Liam," Chloe corrected, her voice dropping to a glacial chill. "And when you walked into my hospital room, while I was bleeding, holding our newborn daughter, and handed me divorce papers so you could chase a bankrupt socialite, I decided to unmake you." Vanessa Roth, unable to contain her panic, pushed through the crowd. "Ms. Harrington, please." "Liam lied to me. I had no idea he was abandoning his family. My father and we are so grateful for your financial support of the Roth estate." Chloe didn't even look at Vanessa. She just raised a single, manicured hand, silencing the older woman instantly. "David," Chloe said, keeping her eyes locked on Liam. David Kensington stepped forward, opening a leather folio. "Ms. Roth, Harrington Industries did not purchase your family's debt to support you. We purchased it to consolidate it. As of 5:12 p.m. today, the Roth Trust is in default on the terms of those loans. We are initiating foreclosure on all Roth assets, including this museum exhibit, your commercial properties, and your private residence in Beacon Hill. You have 48 hours to vacate." Richard Roth collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Vanessa let out a shrill, hysterical sob, realizing the heiress she had insulted by proxy had just systematically deleted her family's entire legacy. Bella Campbell, trembling uncontrollably, suddenly lunged forward, falling to her knees at Chloe's feet. "Chloe, please!" Bella sobbed, grasping at the hem of Chloe's emerald gown. "We were wrong. Liam made a terrible mistake. But your family, Maya is my granddaughter. We can annul the divorce. We can fix this." Chloe looked down at her former mother-in-law, the woman who had called her a peasant, who had told her to take her bastard child back to a trailer park. "Do not touch me," Chloe commanded. The authority in her voice was so absolute that Bella recoiled as if she had been burned. Liam, seeing his mother on the floor and his entire life reduced to ash, felt a sudden, desperate surge of venomous survival instinct. If he couldn't have his company, he would take half of hers. "We were married for 3 years!" Liam shouted, his face contorting with rage as he pointed a shaking finger at Chloe. "You hid billions of dollars in marital assets. That's fraud, Chloe. And Maya is my daughter. I have paternal rights. I'll take you to family court. I'll sue you for half of everything you own. You owe me alimony." The silence in the room became suffocating. The elite crowd watched, utterly captivated by the drama. Chloe didn't flinch. Slowly, a dark, triumphant smile spread across her flawless face. She reached into the small clutch she was holding and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to David, who unfolded it and held it up for Liam to see. It was the petition for dissolution of marriage. The very papers Bella had slammed onto Chloe's hospital tray. "You really should read the contracts you force people to sign, Liam," Chloe said softly, the lethal trap finally springing shut. "You were in such a rush to secure a clean break for Vanessa's fake investment. You downloaded a standard ironclad dissolution form. You waived all rights to spousal support. You waived all claims to any hidden or undisclosed assets. And most importantly, to ensure I couldn't come after your imaginary tech millions, you signed away all parental rights and custody of Maya in exchange for 0 child support obligations." Liam stared at his own signature at the bottom of the page. He had been so obsessed with protecting his own impending wealth that he had legally, permanently walled himself off from a $60 billion empire. "You have no equity, Liam. You have no daughter. You have no wife. You have absolutely nothing," Chloe said, her voice echoing with finality. She turned to the museum's head of security, who was standing nervously nearby. "These 3 individuals are trespassing at a private corporate event. Have them removed." "No, Chloe, wait, please!" Liam screamed, fighting against the 2 massive security guards who grabbed him by the arms. Bella wailed, dragging her heels across the marble floor as she was pulled away alongside Vanessa Roth, who was hyperventilating in shock. Chloe stood completely still, watching as the doors of the great room were shoved open and the people who had tried to destroy her were thrown out into the cold Boston night. The threat was neutralized. The parasites were gone. She turned back to the crowd of stunned billionaires, venture capitalists, and socialites. She raised a fresh glass of champagne handed to her by a waiter. "Now that the trash has been taken out," Chloe Harrington said, a brilliant, terrifying smile illuminating her face. "Shall we discuss the future of Boston?" An hour later, Chloe sat in the back of the armored Maybach, gliding smoothly back toward the Brookline estate. The adrenaline of the confrontation was fading, replaced by a profound, settling peace. She walked through the massive oak doors of her home, handed her heels to the butler, and walked barefoot up the grand staircase. She pushed open the door to the nursery. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a nightlight. Maya was sleeping soundly in her crib, completely oblivious to the war that had just been fought and won in her name. Chloe leaned over the crib, gently brushing a lock of hair from her daughter's forehead. She had lost a husband, but she had found her crown, and no one, for the rest of their lives, would ever look down on them again. Sometimes, the greatest blessing in disguise is the betrayal that forces you to remember exactly who you are. Chloe Harrington's story is a powerful reminder that true wealth isn't just about money. It's about loyalty, self-respect, and the fierce protective instinct of a mother's love. Liam sacrificed everything for an illusion, only to lose the very empire he was desperately trying to build. Never underestimate someone's quiet humility. It might just be the disguise of a dragon. If this story of absolute revenge and triumph gave you chills, make sure to hit that like button. Share this video with someone who loves a good karma comeback. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more epic, real-life drama stories every single week. See you in the next one.